This cosplay of the most underrated Pokemon character and the largest prop I have ever made won me my first cosplay award ever. Let's go to Galaxycon 2024.
I am not a morning person.
And after sitting there for a minute, just waking the rest of the way up, I got in cosplay, absolutely vibing out to Professor Sycamore's battle theme, because of course I did. Then it was time to load Xerneas in the car. Now luckily my dad and a family friend of ours managed to get Xerneas into the car without too many hiccups, but of course there were still some hiccups that came along the way that I'll get to in a second. And then we started making our way to Raleigh. Now once we got to the convention center, things took a bit of a turn, because there was a Pokemon cosplay meetup that I wanted to get to that started at 11 o'clock. We left the house around 8ish, and I thought that would be more than enough time for us to make the 2-hour drive to Raleigh and still have enough time to pick up some food along the way, which we did, but what I didn't take into account was the line. The line went halfway around the convention center building and doubled back in a U-turn. And that's when I started to get nervous, because that line was pretty long and was taking a lot longer than I thought it would. By the time that I got inside and we got our badges, it was already 11 o'clock. So I had to book it to the cosplay lounge. Now, Galaxycon's cosplay lounge for the past 2 or 3 years has always been in the same spot. Right here. This year, however, it was not in that spot. That room had been converted into another panel room. I didn't find out until much later where the cosplay lounge actually was. So I started asking around, and eventually I found a convention volunteer who told me, "Oh, it's just across the street." I thought he meant it's just down the hall, because that is a running joke I have with my parents, that when we say, "Oh, it's just across the street," or just down the road a little bit, we mean it's just down the hall. This time, however, I should have taken this guy literally, because I started looking all through the hall, and I did not see the lounge anywhere. Both me, my parents, and our family friend who came with us, we all were asking around trying to figure out where the fuck this cosplay lounge was. Eventually, we made our way down the escalators and made it to the prejudging room, just because by then it was already 11:20 and the meetup ended at 11:30, so I would have only had 10 minutes to get in there and get my pictures anyway, and with how big Xerneas was, I wasn't about to argue with whatever door I had to get her in there, so I just gave up. Which I found out from a Cynthia cosplayer who encountered me while I was trying to recollect myself down there, that there also was a Serena at said meetup. So I'm pretty sure that there would have only been 2 Pokémon X and Y characters there. Me as Sycamore, and this random Serena that I only heard about and never actually saw. But I did get a picture with this Cynthia. And while I was waiting for my prejudging spot, a Lucifer from Has-Been Hotel spotted me and gifted me a little rubber duck with a pentacle on the bottom, because of course he did. And I actually still have it. I have it right here in my shadow box with my medal. Spoilers. And then, prejudging. Now, I remember hearing in the Sarah Spaceman video,
Costume contests have prejudging, which is where judges get to look at the cosplay up close before the stage show, but often prejudging times can be as short as 3 minutes long.
I have heard too. We didn't have that luxury either. The Galaxycon novices only had a minute and a half, or sometimes even a minute tops, just to explain all of the stuff we did. Now, if I had just sewn everything as just a regular costume, that would have been fine. But, considering that I made an entirely new thing, making a gigantic deer plush that can have movable legs, I had to explain all of that before I even touched on how I made my actual costume. Luckily, though, the judges were pretty nice about it and let me catch my breath every once in a while in between sentences, since I was talking a lot and very fast. Not to mention, I was also holding a deer plush that was a lot heavier than I was expecting it to be. Oh boy. Something I thought I should mention here is that Galaxycon did not require build books. Now, if you don't know what a build book is, I will put a video in the iCard up in the corner that describes them a lot better than I can, but in essence what it is you take pictures of your progress while you're making the thing, and you put it into a little pamphlet, sometimes with little flavor text, that shows how you made the thing, and you give that little pamphlet to the judges during prejudging, so that way, during their deliberations later, they can refer back to it, or if there's questions they want to ask you that you can't answer in the moment, then they have it in the book. Galaxycon did not require this build book. All they needed was your references of your character, which I had. I wanted to make a build book, but unfortunately I ran into some printer issues, so I only had enough printer ink to print out the character references, but that's fine. I thought I could work with that. However, during my 1-minute word vomit, the thought of giving them my reference picture completely escaped my mind. I didn't realize I didn't give it to them until I went to go sit down outside, catch my breath, and I felt the paper squish in my back pocket. And by then, the next contestant had already gone into the prejudging room, so I couldn't go back in and give it to them. Shit. But turns out they probably didn't need it, considering that one of the judges actually was dressed as Umbreon, and she seemed to know what I was doing. Oh, this contest wasn't run very well, was it? So after my prejudging spot was done, my dad and I decided to take Xerneas back to the car so I wasn't carrying around a heavy fucking deer all day, which turned out to save my back in the long run. I didn't want to be like Tobey Maguire.
My back! Oh, my back!
And as my dad and I were going back to the car, I spotted a couple of Genshin cosplayers and I called them out. My dad actually had an interesting question for me. What the hell is Genshin Impact? Because he had heard me talking about it a lot during the day and he was kind of confused. So I got to explain it to him, which was kind of fun. And you'll find out why I bring that up in a later video. I promise you this video isn't sponsored. Anyway, the rest of the con was pretty much uneventful. There wasn't really anything that we wanted to do, because none of the panels really seemed all that interesting, and a lot of the celebrities we either didn't know or didn't want to wait in the long-ass lines to see. But yeah, we kind of just split off. My dad and our family friend went in one direction, and my mom and I went in another, because there were different things that we wanted to see. The one thing that I bought all day, besides food, was a prop for another cosplay, which you will find out later. Eventually, the four of us met back up to get some food down there, and I spotted a couple cosplayers that I didn't see earlier. As we were sitting there, and I was just people watching, as you tend to do at conventions, I saw something that caught my eye. Now, for context, I know a little bit about Resident Evil lore. This is important, because the two cosplayers that I locked eyes on were Chris and Wesker from Resident Evil 1. Yeah, like the stars versions. So I got a picture of them from behind, but unfortunately by the time I registered who they were, I didn't have enough time to go up to them and ask for a proper picture, for one, because the aisles were incredibly crowded, but the other part being that they were too far away from the table by the time I noticed, and I didn't want to get up and go chase them down. So I just kind of let them be, let them do their own thing. And as my mom was in line to get us food, I spotted something else. Joe freaking Biden. I am not kidding. Joe freaking Biden. Not the real man, mind you, but he at least pulled it off really well. Because you know that, okay, before I do that, this is going to be calling out a very specific subset of people, but you know the bit of Seth Meyers interviewing Biden and they went to an ice cream shop? Yeah, this guy had a prop ice cream and the aviators. I was cracking up. I couldn't help myself because I kind of like political humor. That's just, I like it. It's funny. Anyway, once we had our food, which was kind of not very good, I determined that there was a Nintendo meetup coming up. And since I missed the Pokemon one earlier in the morning, this was my redemption. So I took off to go looking for the cosplay lounge again. This time, though, I actually decided to check the directory of the convention, and I figured out where the damn lounge was. In the fucking Marriott. It was in the hotel. If the guy from before had just told me that it was in the hotel, that would have been fine, but no, he had to say across the street. Can you tell that I'm a little pissy? But, yeah. I managed to get in there, and it was right at the tail end of a Demon Slayer meetup, and I ran into a Link cosplayer. This one. He was in there because his younger sibling was in the Demon Slayer meetup. He had no idea that there was a Nintendo meetup next. So I let him know, and that was a kind of fun interaction. But, get this. There were no Pokemon characters in the Nintendo meetup besides me. The most underrated character in the entirety of the Pokemon franchise was representing all of it. If that isn't a redemption arc, I don't know what is. So, I got some safety pins from the from Cosplay Repair. This will be important later. And then I went back to go fetch Xerneas from the car once again. The reason I needed to get the pins from Cosplay Repair was because earlier in the day, like when we were first getting Xerneas in the car to get to Raleigh in the first place, we had to pop her legs off in order to properly fit her in the car because I unfortunately made an oversight where her head can't come off, so that was a bit of an issue. But, because I didn't glue any of the joints, I thought that would be fine and that would just work. It did not, or at least not in the long run. I will probably need to make some future repairs later. But, anyway, at the convention itself, we managed to get it under control. Later in the day, though, as we fished her out of the car the second time before the contest was supposed to start and they called everybody up, then, the joints that connect the heel or the knee on her back legs just completely gave out. Because they had disconnected from the T-joints that I was using as the knee and as the bendable joints, and they wouldn't go back in because I needed to cut open her leg to get inside of it. So that wasn't going to do. Luckily though, the actual structure of the leg itself managed to keep it secure enough. and because of the weight of the leg shifting from the pipes being lower, Xerneas' leg was starting to pull away from her body. So I had to use safety pins to just pin that shit back together quickly. All that mattered was that it survived prejudging, which luckily it did. Then it was time for everybody to be called backstage to wait for the cosplay contest to start. And we actually had a pretty fun time back there. We were vibing out to Chapel Roan and we were just conversing among ourselves. It was actually great. In fact, this Deathstroke cosplayer that was a few people ahead of me, he was actually a personal trainer, so if he manages to find this video, good on you, dude. That looked friggin' amazing. And we were just absolutely vibing back there. You may have seen a couple other things along with the rubber duck that I got from Lucifer, and those things being a smaller duck, a Miku, and a fabric rose, all in the shadow box along with my medal. Well, all three of those were given to me by people backstage, and two of which were actually from the Sarah Spaceman Discord server, so just a fun little thing for that. A detail that I put inside Xerneas that I both neglected to mention during prejudging and earlier in this video were that I put a little Bluetooth speaker inside of Xerneas' body because I was hoping that I'd be able to play her Pokemon cry while I was on stage, but unfortunately the speaker was not quite loud enough, so that plan didn't work out. Eventually though, it's time! It was time for the show to start, and for all of us to make our appearance on stage. I was actually pretty early in the line, so I got front row seats to basically the rest of the show. And I'm gonna put in a highlight reel of all of my favorite cosplayers that I saw up there, because there are some that I don't think many people caught. And in all honesty, with the heat of how hot it was in Raleigh that day, wearing a double layered lab coat and long sleeves that were rolled up, and carrying a heavy ass deer prop, then yeah, my body was not very happy with me, so I kinda dissociated for a lot of the show. I am not proud of it. If anything, I probably need to take better care of myself, but that's a bridge we'll cross later. Now, while we were backstage, I texted my mom to ask her if she could record a video of both me on stage and of the awards ceremony. Even though I had no idea what was going to happen, I just wanted it just in case. Boy, am I glad I asked for that. Because the next thing I heard was this.
Hello, I am Heartless Aquarius, and I am giving my Judges Award to Professor Sycamore, cosplayed by Raising Flare Cosplay.
That's my name. She just called my name. She just called my name! Whoa! Yes! Oh, you have no idea how hard my adrenaline spiked up in that moment. All of the heat fatigue, gone. And just as a point of reference, I wear a smartwatch to keep track of my heart rate for health conditions, and I saw it jump from the usual 99, 98 to a full 110. Because not only was this the first cosplay award I've ever won in a contest like this, it was the first award that I've won since I was like 5. So this was a bit of a big deal for me. I've heard in the cosplay sphere that Judge's Choice isn't necessarily a huge award like Best in Show or Best in Your category, but son of a bitch, it still meant a lot to me. I've been sewing longer than I've been competing, so I'm sure my skills are probably a bit more qualified than a novice, but sometimes I look at other cosplayers and I think otherwise, because the winner of the contest this time, Spawn, I saw him, he was the next spot after me in prejudging, and oh my god, he looks amazing. It was even better up close. Oh my god, he deserved that win. Also, this Serpentious that was right next to me, their egg boy was made out of fucking plaster. Like, it was almost sounded ceramic when they were knocking against him, because they wanted to put the metal on him but couldn't because of how the egg boy was made. So oh, I love it being a cosplayer. But after all the pictures were taken and things backstage were handled, after that long day of ups and downs, it was finally time to head home. I know most of the con vlogs that you'll see are of all the days that the convention is active, but for me, I couldn't do that this year. It's just not in the cards. I honestly would love to, and if they could maybe potentially invite me, then that would be... oh, that would be amazing. I'd have high doubts that that's going to be in the cards, though. We'll see. But I would love to attend all 4 days and see just what kind of chaos I can sow over there. So, yeah. My first ever contest award. We're not going to get over that anytime soon. Which is probably a good thing. I recorded all of this back in July when it first happened, and I'm only posting it now because I feel like a lot of people are going to need either a distraction or a pick-me-up, maybe even both after recent events. And this is one of my personal highlights from this year to look back on. And if I can be someone else's guiding flame in the dark, what's the harm in it? Because sometimes all the world needs is a little bit of beauty to look forward to. And if we can find that beauty and hold it close, that is what keeps us going. The next couple of videos will be how I made both Sycamore and Xerneas in full, if you want to see those. And then I am tackling my first ever foam armor project with a certain knight of beauty. To my friends out there, I urge you, stay safe and stay with us. The ones who want to hurt us want to see us fall. But together and through time, we will rise again. Until we meet again, burn bright, my friends, and stay safe out there.